This is the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.
Okay, guys, let's just rip. And Chris DeGaulle.
Chris DeGaulle. Chris, thanks for being with me tonight.
Chris DeGaulle.
I'm joined now by Chris DeGaulle.
Now, he puts the broad in broadband. It's Chris DeGaulle.
The Chris DeGaulle podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
It's Monday. It's the 13th day of November, which is almost impossible to say aloud. I can't believe it. Welcome into the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast. Hey, thanks for your 5-star reviews and your written reviews at Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. I'm always grateful. I know that takes time out of your day to physically scroll all the way down to the bottom of the menu of shows and do that. Thank you for doing it. Thanks to those of you who have reached out to our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, as well, at usmedicalplan.com. Everybody from Fast Eddie, our executive producer, to friends of mine at church have reached out to John Ruhlman, who makes this show possible each and every day, and they have saved. They have saved on health insurance plans. Fast Eddie has gone outside the company, as a matter of fact, and found for his wife and his son a better option for them that will save them money monthly. A few $100s a month, as a matter of fact. I've told you about my personal friend who saved a couple $1,000s a month. I just talked with a friend of mine yesterday. He's thinking about taking on a new job. He needs some additional assurance, and he's going to call. I told him, call John Ruhlman and the team at usmedicalplan.com. I'm not kidding. With 80 different private health insurers available to John, he can shop and compare all these different companies and plans and find just the right one for you. The idea is saving you money every month, but still, yes, giving you the coverage you want. So this is not to cut corners or cut coverages. That's never what he wants to do. Also, if you say, hey, I've got this current plan, can you beat it? Sometimes, it's pretty rare, but sometimes he'll say, I can't beat this plan. This is really good. Like your company plan's the best I can find. But, give him a ring and say, hey, look, I'm re-enrolling for insurance this year. Is this the best I can do? $400, $500, $600 a month for my family out of my paycheck. He may say, oh, I can beat that. If you're a relatively younger person, young family with no real health issues, you might be surprised at how much money you can save. You seniors on fixed incomes and you have to buy a supplemental plan, John's a must. Or if you have parents that are trying to pinch pennies where they can, supplemental health insurance is expensive. John knows how to find the cheapest available there, too. And for those of you who have no insurance, good grief, don't do that. If you're a young person and you have no health insurance, you're out there by yourself and you figure, that's an expense I don't want to waste. Horrible. If you ever should get sick or get in some kind of accident, heaven forbid, that'll break you. And for pennies really a month, for what you blow probably in eating out in the course of a month, not even, maybe one meal eating out or one night of cocktails, you can have a really high-quality health insurance plan that will pay you if you're ever hospitalized, actually cut you checks, seriously. Call John today. Find out about it. 877-410-4321. 877-410-4321 or usmedicalplan.com. It's not only Pennsylvania that's a problem, obviously. Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin had been beating the bushes to get people out early and vote early. And my buddy Larry was down there on the convention floor with Ronna McDaniel on Monday night, or Wednesday night, whatever night the debate was for the Republicans, and he got in the spin room with her and said, Glenn Youngkin said that they got their butts kicked in Virginia and the legislature turned blue because you guys didn't help. Did you hear her response to this, Fast Eddie?
I did, man. I actually had to retweet it. This was crazy.
Yeah, listen to this. This is what she said to Larry about that.
You don't let people lie about you and let it go unanswered. Let it go unanswered. If somebody's spending $30 million against you and they're lying about you and say you won't give life-saving care for miscarriages or an ectopic pregnancy, you better get on TV and tell them that the voters that's a lie, or they think that's the truth. And our candidates have got to do this. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can go and say, this is where I stand. The Democrats are lying. And now let's talk about crime, schools, border, fentanyl, and national security.
I just want to clarify one quick thing, though. The RNC had no involvement in these elections in Virginia per Governor Youngkin's request.
We were told in the summer they didn't need us, that they had all the money and they were good. So that was the conversation.
Thanks for your time.
And Larry, of course, classically mugs to the camera and said, well, we'll be following up on that. if that was hard for you to hear or follow, let me just cut to the chase. Ronna McDaniel said that this is amazing. She claims that all Virginia Republicans told the national RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, in the summer, June, July, August, they called her up and they said, hey, Ronna, we're doing so great here in Virginia. We don't need your help. We don't want a nickel of your money. We good. Now, do you believe that on its face? On its face, do you believe? She said, that's what they said. You'll have to take it up with them. They called me and said this summer, they said, they don't need my help. We got all the money. We don't need you. Have you ever in politics heard somebody say, I have plenty of money, national organization, no thank you?
Never.
I've never heard that in my life. So I'm sure my colleague Larry will be following up there in the Delmarva region, as they call it, out of Washington, D.C. with Ronna. Now, she made her weekend rounds, her heading into the weekend rounds. I can't believe she even appeared with Laura Ingraham, to be perfectly honest with you. That must have been I didn't see it. It made me pucker when I read it. Ronna McDaniel went on with Laura Ingraham. I tell you, there aren't many people that I would love to see Ronna McDaniel walk onto a set with, and Laura's one of them. I am certain Laura didn't pull any punches. Let's listen to that.
Vivek and others are saying that under your leadership, Republicans have lost election after election, and positing the question, why should you retain your job given the track record of the party under your leadership? And to that, what do you say?
Well, first, I'm going to continue to focus on Joe Biden and Democrats. And I think there was a moment missed during that debate by Vivek to talk about the fact that we still have 13 American hostages in Israel. The fact that for the first time ever in the history of either party, we had a Jewish co-sponsor for a debate, and we are in very perilous times in our country. And I do think Republican voters, and I hear this echoed all the time, are tired of the circular firing squad within our party. And they're saying, can we please talk about Joe Biden and the Democrats and the border and fentanyl and crime and what's happening to our kids and inflation. But I'll definitely defend my record as chair. Listen,
yeah, I mean, Ronna, I agree with you. Let me just say, I mean, all that you just said, I couldn't agree with more. But and you're right. I mean, obviously that should be a key focus. But I know you believe in accountability. You talk about it all the time. I mean, everyone. I mean, I'm accountable. You're right.
Some accountability.
Okay, that's what I asked you, and you went into another.
Yeah, I was going to go there. Sorry, I took too long on the answer, but I was getting there. I'm not trying to avoid anything. Let me promise you that, Laura. Listen, when Vivek didn't vote in 2016, I was leading Michigan to the first win in history in 30 years. In 2018, we defied the odds. We got three senators, people like Josh Hawley, that allowed President Trump to build the largest conservative majority on the Supreme Court. In 2022, the RNC, which is a turnout machine, right? We're not the messengers. We don't create the messages for the campaigns. Those are the consultants who get very well paid.
Well, one of the things, though, Ronna, that happened was, I think in Virginia, people were wondering where the money was, whether they were going to get some help from the RNC.
Does she say it again?
And I know at one point you said that you were not asked for money in Virginia, but a Republican source familiar with the Youngkin team in Virginia told The Angle late tonight that is false. And meaning your story keeps changing. Anyone who thinks Virginia Republicans wouldn't want help when we knew we'd be outspent isn't being serious. Ronna, they were outspent by $8 million.
Glenn Youngkin and it did a phenomenal job, and he raised a lot of money. A lot of people don't understand fundraising.
No,
I can't raise state dollars. I don't get unlimited convention and state dollars. And these were state House and state Senate races. The RNC is a federal committee. So, I mean, come on. Can you just these are people who come after me all the time. They're on Twitter. They're all the time. And let's see their results. What did they do in Virginia? How much money did they give? But let me stand by something else. In 2022, we took back the House. And the RNC is part of that. We're building the road. And we're launching Bank Your Vote. We've got to do that.
Ronna, we got to roll, but thank you for joining us tonight. We have a lot more to get to next.
Okay, so let's go over Ronna's list of accomplishments, shall we? In that diatribe of the things she's accomplished. First of all, she says, now her official position is, I can't give Virginia money because they're state house races. Is that what she just said? Because she told Larry after the debate, nobody asked her for money. They said they were good. They didn't need her help. So which is it? Is it they can't put money into races that are statewide, or she wasn't asked for help? Which is it? She's changed her story within 48 hours. So she's been caught lying one way or the other, right there. Then she ticks off her list of accomplishments. Big Michigan win in 2018. Okay, a state. She wants credit for a state in one election cycle, which, by the way, if anybody's been paying attention, Michigan has not stayed red. She wants credit for Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Now, the Josh Hawley Senate win in Missouri, I know a couple of things about this. That was a hotly contested primary, but there was never a doubt that a Republican senator was going to win that seat. So she wants credit for winning a Republican primary in Missouri? Is that about right? And then she said, again, we took back the House. She wants credit for the New York and California seats that flipped. Because why? Those are literally the probably two of the hardest seats to flip, two or four of the hardest seats to flip, and two of the toughest states, arguably, yes, in the country, the deepest blue, New York and California. Yes, some Republican seats got picked up in those two states, but why? Why? We know. Vote harvesting. New York and California Republicans have been playing the game for a long time now. Not the national party, the state parties have, and they figured it out and they did it. She wants credit for a 4-vote majority in the House that come from New York and California. So that's her list of accomplishments. I guess she's doing, what do you think this is? Is she doing the Sunday weekend talk show circuit because she realizes Vivek's caused her a big problem and one of the most viral, just in case for some reason, can we go back and find Vivek from last week during the debate? The reason Ronna McDaniel is running around doing triage on her image on all these Sunday shows is because Vivek, during the debate, if you for some reason didn't see this, I put it up on social media. It's easily one of the most shared and most viral moments going out there. When Vivek tells the crowd that Ronna's done jack squat and he'd like to give his time to her to resign. Just a refresher, here's why Ronna's running around doing damage control this weekend.
Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017. We have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you. And frankly, look, the people there cheering for losing in the Republican Party. Think about who's moderating this debate. This should be Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, and Elon Musk. We'd have 10 times the viewership, asking questions that GOP primary voters actually care about and bringing more people into our party. Do you think the Democrats, and we've got Kristen Welker here, do you think the Democrats would actually hire Greg Gutfeld to host a Democratic debate? They wouldn't do it. And so the fact of the matter is, Kristen, I'm going to use this time because this is actually about you in the media and the corrupt media establishment. Ask you, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that you pushed on this network for years, was that real or was that Hillary Clinton made-up disinformation? Answer the question. Go. Mr. Roberts, this is how we get our country back. We need accountability because this media rigged the 2016 election. They rigged the 2020 election with the Hunter Biden laptop story. And they're going to rig this election.
So naturally, you can understand why Ronna now has to go around doing the triage tour, explaining why. No. In reality, she's highly, highly successful. Right. Meanwhile, Joe Biden continues by every metric to fail and fail miserably. And you sit around and you scratch your head and you say, how is it the Republicans can be on the ropes to this degree when we know Biden and the Democrats are taking on water the way they are? The answer is, again, very simply, ballot harvesting. Don't forget, never forget this. And as many times as I have to say it, I'll say it till I'm blue. I've been talking about it for how many years now? At least 2 years I've been saying this. Vote harvesting, early vote collection. If we don't understand how to collect votes early, it doesn't matter. None of this matters if we don't understand how to bank votes. How many votes ultimately did we say last week were cast in Pennsylvania early for the Democrat Supreme Court judge?
I thought it was 400,000.
I think you're right, 400,000. And remember, Fetterman People, still to this day around the country, people ask me, Stigall, how did Fetterman become a senator? I say 600,000 votes were cast for him before Election Day. That's how. How many times do we have to get our asses handed to us on this early vote thing before we learn? And she's talking about Michigan and Josh Hawley in Missouri. That's her list of accomplishments. She limps in there finally with, oh, yeah, and bank your vote. And bank your vote, too. And bank your vote as well. Thanks for the afterthought, Ronna. It's not where her head is. It's not naturally where her head is. If this is where her head was, she'd lead with this. I have heard what the Republican voter is concerned about, this early voting phenomenon that the Democrats have swamped us on. It's why we created Bank Your Vote. I mean, like, if I'm a consultant to Ronna McDaniel, I go, okay, you're going on these shows to make the convincing argument to Republican voters that you've got this? You're the captain of the ship, you're going to fix things? First thing you do is communicate to them. They know now they're getting swamped with the early vote. They know. They understand the game now. The early ballots, they don't trust the system. So you got to convince them that we've got a handle on this thing and that we're out there pushing Republicans to vote early. It doesn't come to her naturally, you see. She says things like, we won Michigan in 2020. What? That's not your first thing. That's not the first thing you say. Josh Hawley won a Senate primary as a Republican in Missouri? That's like saying I found a fat person at a buffet. What do you want accomplishment for that? What did you do there, Ronna? But I don't want to distract from what is also true, and that is that Joe Biden is in terrible trouble and is disliked universally. We had the stories last week that the Democrats are fretting about rural votes. They can't get rural votes for nothing. Working class votes, they can't. Black votes, they're worried about. I have more stories in front of me today. Biden losing ground with young voters. Black voters showing signs of slipping away from Biden in 2024. Bill Maher again this weekend. Bill Maher talking about the Obama administration, which in essence this is the third term of Barack Obama. He's talking about how disheartened and deflated and depressed and dispirited he is as an old school Democrat to hear Obama throw in with the Islamists. Take a listen.
I am struggling with people's moral equivalency still. I mean, Barack Obama, who has rarely disappointed me, did so this week. I mean, his statement, it's not a horrible statement, but he said, if you want to solve the problem, then you have to take in the whole truth, and then you have to admit nobody's hands are clean. Literally, that's true, of course. But just give you two examples where this is, I don't think, a helpful statement at this moment. First of all, the attack was only a month ago. A more savage attack than we've ever seen in reverse. There's a big difference between collateral damage and what Hamas did. Secondly, okay, the Israelis are now allowing a 4-hour pause for people to get out. I'm sorry, people say, oh, wow, big of them. Okay, but it is a war that the other side started. Right. So interesting. When they fire at Israel, it's a war. When Israel fires back, it's a war crime. Little crazy. So, and also, would Hamas do that? Would they give 4-hour pause? No pausing. And then Israel's heritage minister was asked in an interview about using a nuke on Gaza. And he said that's one of the possibilities. He was fired, not allowed in the cabinet meeting anymore, disavowed by the prime minister. Would that happen in reverse? So enough with the moral equivalencies, please.
I think...
All right. So this is the coalition of the Democrats that is fraying deeply. And they're seeing what we watched over the week, Friday heading into the weekend. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit, too. Did you see what went on in New York again? This pro-Palestinian riot, trying to bust down doors at Grand Central Station to get to cops. Saw people scaling light poles and ripping down American flags and Israeli flags from the light poles in New York. It feels like we're being invaded, to be perfectly honest, if you're watching some of the media coverage of this. These pro-Palestinian supporters that now look like they seem to be doing a little more than marching in support of the Palestinians. It now is starting to look like we're a nation under attack. This is starting to look a lot more like the Black Lives Matter riots, to me, than it's looking pro-Palestinian, wouldn't you say? And so people like Bill Maher are watching this with great alarm. Bill Maher, a committed left-wing Democrat, watching with great alarm, saying, my God, these anti-Semites are now attacking cops. They're trying to tear into our buildings. They're ripping down the American flag. Now, folks, if Democrats, let's call them moderates or Democrats, can sit and watch this and still reward Democrats, that speaks to what a problem the Republican Party has. The Republican Party's brand, or the Republican Party's inability to harvest votes early, or whatever you want to call it, if people like Bill Maher can watch that and be as deeply disturbed as you and I are and still say, but I can't see my way to voting for Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump or something, I don't know what to tell you about that. This was an interesting show because not only was Bill Maher lamenting this development, they kind of make the natural transition into something that you know is a passion of mine and one that I believe is the root cause of all of this. I think Maher and his panel begin to tap into exactly why you're watching all this anti-Semitism. We've watched a couple of generations now of just rot being taught in our public schools. And so that subject matter comes up this weekend on Bill's show. Listen to this.
And finally, new rule: if humanity can impose rules on warfare, let's do something really ambitious. Let's try them on high school. Because our public schools are no longer safe. For the teachers. A 15-year-old in Houston this year sucker punched his teacher for confiscating his phone after screaming, "Give me my phone. I told you to give me my phone." Hey, Sprint, you may have a new spokesperson. In Florida, a high school student beat a teacher's aide unconscious for taking his Nintendo Switch. Hitting the teacher? I used to get sent to the principal's office for rolling my eyes. Go online. You can see endless videos of this stuff, of kids threatening and punching teachers. What is this, JetBlue? What have we let our schools turn into? A third of teachers in America say they've been harassed or threatened, and 1 in 7 in this country has been physically attacked. 2023 kicked off with the story of a 6-year-old boy taking a gun to school in Newport News, Virginia, shooting his teacher and then declaring, "I shot that bitch dead," which would be a cool last line for a Mickey Spillane novel. But a 6-year-old? The librarian at the school added some context to the story, saying, "Every day in every one of our schools, teachers, students, and other staff members are being hurt. Every day, they're hit, they're bitten, they're beaten." No wonder 50% of teachers express a desire to quit or transfer to something less dangerous, like walking Joe Biden's dog.
All right, and this goes on. But the point of it is, where does it come from? Where his show emanates, California. That's where he does his show. I remind you that just a few weeks ago, Gavin Newsom passed a law to make student suspensions for willful defiance illegal. Now, I bet that wasn't included in his monologue there, but it bears repeating. What's Bill Maher talking about here? So he's talking about this scourge of anti-Semitism. We're watching this anti-Semitism seemingly go to war with our cops, start to deface property, try to tear apart Grand Central Station in New York over the weekend. Where does it come from? It comes from public education. It comes from a couple of generations of kids being taught to hate their country, beat the hell out of their teachers. Teachers don't want to teach anymore. He says, how is this happening? Why is this happening? Democrat policies like Gavin Newsom's that say willful defiance is no longer a suspendable offense in California. That's where it comes from. They also marvel at the fact, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the growth of homeschool. The Washington Post is deeply alarmed at this. See, this is what makes me actually optimistic. And some of you, I realize this may sound as though I'm being glum. There is one specific aspect of our culture that I'm extraordinarily positive about. And that is what the Washington Post has been terrified about. It's funny because I don't say this to self-promote, although I do hope you'll check out the Making the Leap podcast that my wife and I do. Christine and I have been doing a podcast encouraging parents to tap into resources and start exploring alternative education for their kids, whether that's Christian school or homeschool or whatever that looks like for you, but to start looking at educating your young people in a different way than just putting them on the bus and send them off to public school. And during the last year and some change that Christine and I have done that show, we've interviewed a lot of very interesting people, including homeschoolers. My sister-in-law is a homeschooler. And the more I've talked with her and the more we've watched my sister-in-law homeschooling my young nephews, it's a fascinating world that a lot of people still don't know about. But the Washington Post is terrified because it is the fastest growing education pool in the country. Parents in mass are pulling their kids from public school and decided, screw it, we're just going to do it ourselves, and we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it in conjunction with a community of other parents and other kids. We're going to do it our way. Washington Post has written 2 huge exposés on this, in the last month or two. Actually, I think in just 1 month they wrote 2. Deeply troubled. What are these kids learning? What are these people teaching them? Bill Maher just told you. He laid the case as to why the public is pulling their kids out of school. So, and they talk a little about this. Let me play a little of this, then I'll get back to my point.
So I'm not surprised that homeschooling is America's fastest growing form of education, and not just with weirdo Christian families who make their daughters wear a bonnet. To millions of parents, anything is better now than public education, and that includes Catholic school. You know, in 1970, only 2.7% of the kids who went to Catholic school were not Catholic. Now it's 22%. Yeah. Catholic school 8th graders are 2 full grade levels above public school kids because their school isn't a safe space for off. They're told, no, you can't be on your phone here, and your pronouns are shut up and sit down.
Okay, so despite the disparaging remarks about Christian schoolgirls wearing bonnets, which is, you know, again, whatever. I'm not, again, this is why I say Bill Maher's not an ally, but Bill Maher's making a useful argument that I'm going to be able to look past the disparaging remarks, even though, I mean, he opined rather passionately about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and if he thinks that's not spiritual, whatever. But I'll set that aside. Never you mind. The point is, and it is exploding, and Bill Maher knows why it is. He knows why non-Catholic kids are now attending Catholic school at a record pace and performing better, because Catholic schools, by and large, still have an element of control and discipline and expectation levels. And parents want that. But I'll tell you that it's not just, you know, Catholic school and Christian school. The homeschool phenomenon is exploding because a lot of parents have concluded, I don't trust institutions, period, to better educate my kids than me. And you know what? It's probably the correct assessment. If you really want control of how your kids turn out, if you really want them to have a foundational belief system, if you really want them to have core values as well as really learn something, the truest, purest way to do that is to do it yourself. And that's hard, and it's costly, and the people that do that many times lead lifestyles that a lot of us don't want to lead, because it means driving one car, and it means one parent working outrageous hours while another doesn't, and they live very lean, and there's no flashy vacations, and they literally do things that most of us aren't willing to do to make it happen. But there are many millions of people in this country that feel it's gotten to the point that the only way to do this well and do it right is to raise my own kids and teach them myself. So I would just say, as I look out over the landscape here and I see these stories, just like I saw as we were heading into the election day, black voters show signs of slipping away from Biden, Biden losing ground with young voters, rural voters, school-aged parents are in despair. This anti-Semitism is on the march. Try to buy a home if you're a millennial. There is nothing about this country that's on the right track. We've gone over this list 1,000 times. It's dispiriting. You can despair. And the Democrats run it all. And yet somehow Ronna McDaniel and the Republicans got their butts kicked on Election Day. And she doesn't want to own it. And she doesn't want to take any responsibility for it. And she doesn't think there's anything to fix. Well, we have a year. We have a year to fix it. Every sign suggests Democrats should be sent packing. And yet they understand how to do something that we don't. And that is go find their voters, whether they want to turn out or not. Collect the ballots well before you and I even wake up and get dressed to go vote on Election Day. She doesn't want to tackle that. She still does not think that's a serious problem. We won Michigan a couple of years ago for a minute, says Ronna. I hope you heard my conversation with Dinesh D'Souza on the most recent show, I think this week. All the days run together. I don't remember exactly when we talked to Dinesh. I think it was this week or maybe last. But anyway, you heard me talking to you and him about his new film, Police State. PoliceStateFilm.net is the website if you want to see the trailer. PoliceStateFilm.net. Now, Dinesh and this film seek to chronicle the relentless persecution of the conservative movement in this country using the heavy strong-arm tactics of the DOJ. The America we know and love is becoming more and more like a police state every day, threatening people like you and me who speak our minds and stand up for freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And so Dinesh D'Souza has directed this film, Police State, in an attempt to sound the alarm. If you demand your freedom, it's likely they're coming after you, or they're certainly watching. I mean, we all see that. We've seen that with just about everybody who was even present on January 6th in Washington, D.C., 2020. How did we get here? And how do we turn the tide of a tyrannical government's agenda? Well, this movie goes a long way into chronicling it and perhaps talking about how we can reverse course. It's called Police State by Dinesh D'Souza. You can stream it now, right now, PoliceStateFilm.net. Hope you'll watch it, PoliceStateFilm.net. I saw a story in passing over the weekend that there were some people angry that the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, had taken impeachment of Joe Biden off the table. And I guess Mike Johnson's people came out to say, that's not true. That's not off the table at all. So Mike Johnson's office making it clear they are still very much entertaining discussing the impeachment of Joe Biden. So there are a lot of people that are, as we talked about when he was made speaker, they're eager to find fault with the guy right away. Okay, what's he not doing? Why is he a sellout? Why is he a traitor? Why is he a rhino? I get it. It's a healthy suspicion we all have to have, as I was just discussing with Ronna McDaniel, but we've already kind of gone through what he's been handed, which is an excrement sandwich, a steaming pile of excrement on a plate, and now he's got to come in and figure something out. It's as Scott Perry from the House Freedom Caucus said, look, we don't want to pass a CR, but now we're at this, looming budget deadline thing. And so what do we do here? House Speaker Mike Johnson announcing a two-step short-term spending measure to avoid a government shutdown. The plan would give certain federal agencies money through the middle of January, while others would get funds through early February, allowing lawmakers in the House and Senate more time to hash out longer spending legislation. Two-step continuing resolution, or CR, a necessary bill to place House Republicans in the best position to fight conservative victories. For conservative victories, Johnson said in a post over the weekend. This continuing resolution will stop the absurd holiday season omnibus tradition of massive loaded-up spending bills introduced right before Christmas recess. So here's one positive. Johnson is already out there on social media explaining himself for himself. He's stepping out in front, and he's owning what's going on, and he's explaining to the public, here's why we're doing this. You may not like it. You may not like my rationale, but here's what it is. Johnson also noting that separating the continuing resolution from supplemental funding debates, such as the one related to Israel, puts the GOP in a stronger position to fight for fiscally responsible oversight for things like Ukraine and meaningful policy changes at our southern border. Chip Roy appeared frustrated because the plan would continue funding the government at current spending levels. It's a 100% clean, and I 100% oppose, said Chip Roy. My opposition to the clean CR, just announced by Mike Johnson, cannot be overstated. funding Pelosi-level spending and policies for 75 days for future promises, he said, not something he can get behind. So the debate continues. Chip Roy's the kind of guy that says, nope, until we reduce spending, I'm not going to sign off on a CR. There's no reduction in spending whatsoever. And that may be your position. I'm not here to tell you one way or the other how to feel about it. But he says, listen, we do this. We don't get this Christmas tree omnibus thing. We can come back and we can discuss aid to Ukraine and the border separately and not tie it to this huge omnibus package that just gets shoved through and then we don't have a discussion for another year. Like, if you want to have long-term discussions about our spending, I got to do this short-term thing. Guys like Chip Roy say, no, you don't. We can have a discussion about long-term spending, and you can reduce spending right now. Now, what does that mean? That means, as you understand, a fight with Democrats that would, what? Shut down the government, which we know is not a government shutdown. But we head into the holidays, and we've gone through this how many years now? You know what's coming. You say, I don't care, Stigall. I don't care. Well, okay. I'm not trying to talk you into it. I understand. I totally get the feeling of we got to do something about spending, and if not now, when? So dig your heels in and don't let up. Make them come to you. That's fine. We will head into the Christmas holiday season, and we will start to get stories about how during this holiday season, as government employees go home to their children with nothing, they do this poor math routine where everybody's Tiny Tim. Father, do we have any Christmas gifts? No. I'm sorry, Tim. The government shut down, and your father's meager USDA salary won't allow for gifts this year. Oh, Father, that's okay. We have a stocking full of oranges. We're going to get that, is what we'll get. And you say, well, I don't care. I say, okay, fine. But the fact of the matter is there's a huge, huge swath of this country employed by the government. And there will also be a healthy amount of people, old people, who will be scared around Christmas time they're not going to get their security check, or people that think they're not going to get their Medicaid. We've had these Christmas time fights before. And I guess my question is, do they work out for Republicans, Fast Eddie, generally?
Oh, never. Absolutely never in my lifetime that I've been following politics has this ever been a positive for Republicans, ever.
So Johnson's play is, look, let's do something short-term to February, and then we'll dig. Then we can dig, but let's just get, it's like everybody doesn't work. I think I've done this bit over the last few years. I always love around the office, I maintain that very, very little gets done between the months of November and roughly mid-January. Because the same thing is always said whenever you want to start to do something meaningful in the office in that window of time. From November to mid-January, it never fails. Never. Somebody has an idea. Let's do X. And then there's almost this universal bellow from everyone. Well, with the holidays coming up, it's really not probable with the holiday. We can't, the holidays are just around the corner. We're going to have to wait until the new year because of the holidays. And then, of course, when you come back from the holidays, oh, boy, I'm just swamped. I'm just buried under all this, trying to get caught up from the holidays. We spend about 3 calendar months a year talking about the coming holidays and why we can't work, and then about another month catching up from the holidays where we weren't working. It's a remarkable phenomenon, but it goes on everywhere, so why shouldn't it go on in government, Fast Eddie?
Oh, Chris, and that's important for those people in sales. Understand that if a director of marketing or someone's telling you, you know what, well, let's wait till after the holidays because just wait for this. Don't do it. Push on them, because after the holidays, what they're going to say is, I've come back to too much. My email box is just, I'm not going to have time to do any of this. So it's not good for a full quarter of business. Just know.
Sales is the worst about that. Because you come from that world. That's exactly right. You call somebody to make a sale and they say, let's talk after the holidays. And then you do, and you're exactly right. They have 1,000 reasons why that's not going to work time-wise. Let's try in the second quarter. Let's try in the spring. I'm too buried right now with the... So, that could be the argument for Chip Roy. Then we don't, government's no different. So we're just going to punt anyway when we get to the spring. So let's just have the fight now. I don't know. It depends on your point of view. Johnson says he's got... until Johnson disappoints me, and you may be disappointed that he hasn't decided we're just going to shut the government down until we reduce spending. I hear the argument on that. I do. I hear the argument and the want for that. I often share that feeling, but I also do hear when politically people say, do you think that you'll win that long term? Do you think the Republicans will win that? Do you think Mike Johnson and Republicans can hold out and win? That's the question. Like, said another way, do you think Democrats would allow the government to, quote, shut down for a year if that's what it took to make sure they did not lose to a guy like Mike Johnson? Do you think I'm serious, do you think the Democrats would allow the government to stay shut down until Election Day next year? I do. I think they'd love it. Now, look, it's their spending that puts us in this position, along with a lot of rhino Republicans. There's no doubt about it. But it always, this end of the year cliffhanger heading into the holidays is always when we do this. And anyway, that's that. Tim Scott has suspended his presidential campaign. So that leaves what, 4 on the next debate stage that Megyn Kelly will be moderating on December 6th. So that leaves Vivek, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Chris Christie. For some reason, Trump out there talking about Christie over the weekend again. I can't resist. It's apropos of nothing, but I can't resist.
And I went from 63 to 75. That's the biggest increase. There's never been a president. Most presidents, like Obama, got less the second time by millions. Others get... Who said that? Who said that? And by the way, there's somebody else said something. They said, this man said something he shouldn't say. I will defend. He said, Chris Christie is a fat pig. You cannot say that, sir. You can. Please take that back. Please take that back. No. He said, Chris Christie's a fat pig. You cannot do that. He's a tough group. He's a tough group.
That's one of my favorite bits that Trump does. This is such a great, it's like a comic bit. What was that, sir? What did you say? His wife's a tramp? Sir, that's outrageous. Nobody shouted that. That's just his opportunity to sneak it in there. Nobody said Chris Christie's a fat pig. What'd you say, sir? I distinctly heard someone call Chris Christie a fat pig, and I, for one, will not stand for it. Good sir.
I think he's being interrupted mid-thought. He's like, I got 75. What was that?
Great bit. Just a great bit. I love it. Meanwhile, Madison Square Garden this weekend, this continues to be the weirdest thing ever. What do you make of this? Donald Trump, Kid Rock, Donald Trump Jr., and Tucker Carlson, as well as Dana White, all go walking in to Madison Square Garden together at a UFC fight. What do you make of this scene, Fast Eddie? How do you react when you see this? Because I will tell you that over the weekend on social media, a great number of people get titillated by this scene. They like it a lot. They get excited. I saw this shared a ton. These 5 men walking in to Madison Square Garden together out of the tunnel. What is that? I don't know. What is that for you? What does it appear to be? What are you looking at there? What are we seeing?
Chris, the UFC is something with a massive audience. Now, I'm a boxing fan. UFC has overtaken boxing by leaps and bounds. It's not even close as far as people that watch it. It's on ESPN, pay-per-view. They pay for it. It's crazy. So this is a crowd, mostly, we won't say all, mostly that appreciates someone like Donald Trump, the celebrity that he brings. He sits courtside for these fights and gets a round of applause. Even the fighters, a lot of the fighters feel compelled to speak up sometimes. So this is a safe, friendly environment that honestly has potential to grow Trump voters.
Where, in terms of audience, I'd love to know numbers on audience, but where do you think it ranks with, say, boxing? We know is kind of on its, I won't say on its way out, but it gets a lot more viewers than boxing. I don't know. Could you compare it to pro wrestling? You know, like pro wrestling tours around the country and they sell out venues like the Wells Fargo Center. What is this to you? Because I don't pay attention to any of it, but I know how arenas fill for pro wrestling events. Is this bigger UFC than that, or not as big?
I would say they're comparable because they're filling the same arena. So this was sold out at Madison Square Garden. WWF could go in there, WWE could go in there and sell out Madison Square Garden. So I'd say this is probably equal in size.
How about Tucker? Tucker, Kid Rock, Donald Trump Jr., Dana White, and Trump walk into the arena together. Almost sounds like the setup to a joke. I love that Tucker always in the blazer or sweater, the V-neck sweater. You know, Kid Rock's smoking, drinking something. Trump's Trump, you know. It's just so funny. Tucker always looks like he's about to go teach in some college course, no matter where he is. I love it. I love it. It's him. It's just him being true to who he is. Here they are walking into Madison Square Garden.
How strong that team is, making his way into the building. One of the bigger mixed martial arts fans I know, President Donald Trump, taking his octagon side seat for UFC 295. We got 2 title fights coming up at UFC 295 here in a matter of moments, live from Madison Square Garden.
It's insane.
And President Trump will be here to witness all of it. 4 of the very best fighters in the world set to take their cracks at light heavyweight and
Now,
interim heavyweight gold.
Yeah, to be clear, there is nobody in the arena at that. I mean, there's nobody in the ring doing any kind of fighting, right? There's nothing happening. There's no main event that started yet, true?
That's Trump just walking pretty much as an entrance.
That crowd noise is strictly for Trump walking through the tunnel out onto the floor of the Madison Square Garden, the arena.
Yep.
I don't know how to quantify that across the country. I don't know. Like, if does that sell out arenas everywhere it goes? Like Madison Square Garden, that event?
It does, yep.
All right. Fascinating. Meanwhile, Jill Stein has decided she's going to take another swing at it. President Biden from the Hill, already facing dismal approval numbers and multiple liberals looking to replace him, got more unwelcome news this week with the entry of Jill Stein into the 2024 presidential race. Stein announcing late last week she would seek the Green Party nomination for a second time. A lot of people thought she was a spoiler of Hillary Clinton's, as you remember. Her third-party candidacy is now one of a half dozen bids from the left, center, and independent spectrum that could damage Biden in the race, bringing attention to the president's limitations. That's a gentle way to put it, the Hill. The president's limitations. So, RFK is not the only one. Jill Stein is a name, and the Green Party name pulled enough away from Hillary and the Democrats the last time to be a real bit of heartburn. Cornel West is another one still out there, by the way. He's running now as an independent, too, formerly campaigning with the Green Party. Some guy called Dean Phillips, you remember him. I'm not entirely sure what his story is, from Minnesota. So we have not seen polls with these people factored in yet. All the polls we've seen are Trump v. Biden head-to-head. We have not, in any poll that I've seen yet, correct me if I'm wrong, Fast Eddie, I've not seen a single poll yet that factors in RFK Jr., people like Jill Stein, Cornel West. Those are names leftists know, and progressives know, and moderates know. We'll see what kind of damage they do to the husk. It's been my pleasure and honor to talk about Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, just off the Blue Route, as my dentist and friend of over 12 years now. But now he has 2 brand new associates, his daughter Alexa and Dr. Geddes. Tell him about him, Bob.
Yeah, it's really a thrill for me to have both the dentists, my daughter and Dr. Jared Geddes. One of the things that I love about them both is when they don't have a patient in their chair, they're in my room watching what I do and trying to learn from me. And we hear enough about the new generation, and if they think they know everything and they don't want to work. And I've got 2 dentists who are really, really want to learn and really, really willing to work hard. And I enjoy learning from them. They brought some new skills and some new technologies to our office that will be great benefits to our patients. And so, if anything, I think that having them both there is going to expand and lengthen my career as opposed to shorten my career.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. David Axelrod is out there just in a panic, apparently, supposedly, over Joe Biden. He wants Joe Biden to get out of the way. He thinks it's selfish that Joe Biden stay. And, of course, Axelrod is Obama's chief strategist once upon a time, and chief spokesmouth, you can still assume. So he's out there turning the screws to Biden pretty regularly, saying his age is a big concern for voters, and he really needs to consider not being so selfish and get out of the way. Did you see him at the wreath laying? The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington this weekend for Veterans Day. Did you see this? John Nolte has the greatest name for him. Are you ready for this? John Nolte, our friend at Breitbart. I just adore. If you didn't see the video, it's a little lost on you, I understand. Calls him the human Roomba.
Oh, no.
Now, I don't know if you know what a Roomba is. I bought my wife one of these for Christmas last year. She loves it. This is the robot vacuum. It's a big circle. And if you're not familiar with it or what it does, when you first start it and let it go through the floor of the home, it's kind of fascinating, actually, and a lot of people mistrust it because, naturally, Big Brother. It scans your entire house, the lay of everything, and it actually ends up, as long as you don't move stuff around, it ends up reading where all of the furniture is, table legs, chairs, and all that stuff. And so it maps out over a couple of vacuuming sessions. It maps out the whole floor plan so that it's not bumping into stuff. But until it does, the first couple of times, that's all it does is it just boom, boom, boom. It just bumps into cabinets and then turns around and boom, boom, bumps into another thing and turns around, boom, boom. And, of course, if you leave something in the middle of the floor or whatever, it'll hit it, boom, and then reject and turn around and go the other way. That's what he looked like while laying the wreath at the tomb over the weekend. A human Roomba, Fast Eddie.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, that's perfect. Sadly,
I thought it was too.
I mean, literally, him walking around in circles and bumping into things. That's exactly it.
There was a guy on social media over the weekend that put up a post. This may still be in my stories, Fast Eddie, if you want to find it. He was standing there charging his car at an electric charging station. I don't know who this comes from, and I'll get the credit here in just a minute because I want to make sure I give the guy due credit. But he was talking through what it costs and what it means to physically pull up to one of these charging stations that you see around town and plug your car into a full charge. And I thought it pretty fascinating. I have an Inquirer story in front of me today about wind turbines, which is what made me think of it. I wanted you to hear some of this first, and then I'm going to get into this story. Take a look. Who is this from, Fast Eddie? Does it say? I'm sorry to put you on the spot because I didn't look. I just saw it last night.
The account is Take the Gold Pill. So
Take the Gold Pill.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know who this is a credit to. My apologies. Not trying to rip him off here. But here's what he said while standing at one of these car charging stations. Listen.
Just doing a quick little video here just to give people an idea of how much energy it takes to charge an electric vehicle. I'm at Electrify America. This is a 350 kilowatt station. I'm consuming roughly 137 kilowatts. It'll fluctuate. Sometimes I can go up to the full 350. But to put this into perspective, an average home consumes 1.25 kilowatts per hour. 135 kilowatts per hour, it's like the equivalent of 106 homes on the grid, just this one station. Now, if I was going to get the full 350 kilowatts like these can supply, that would be the equivalent of 280 homes. Now, think about all 6 chargers running at full capacity. That's like 1,080 homes on the grid. Just a little food for thought. It's things people don't realize the amount of energy it takes to fast charge these batteries.
That's right. Plug in cars. That's good enough. Isn't that amazing math? I'd never done the math on that. I don't, and I'm trusting his math here. I can't independently verify that he's right, but assuming that he is, that an average house per hour uses 1.25 kilowatts of energy. 1.25. That's an average home per hour. He's sitting there at a charging station, plugs in his car. He's consuming 137 kilowatts per hour. He says what he's doing in 1 hour to charge his car is the equivalent of 106 houses on the grid in that hour. Times the 6 at that charging station he was standing next to. And he said, and if I wanted to give this the full 350 kilowatts that this thing can produce, and all 6 of these are running, charging a car at the same time, that's the equivalent of over 1,000 homes an hour on the grid. Plug-in cars. That's why I used to call them plug-in cars, because people would say they were electric and nobody really thought about what that meant. Where does the energy come from? So you're... I don't pump dirty fuel and gasoline anymore. I plug in my car because it's green and I feel good about green. You're sucking more energy into that car in 1 hour being produced than 1,000 homes if the row of you are all doing it at the same time in an hour. I mean, wouldn't you love, I would like to walk up to somebody I see charging their car and say, you're consuming about 137 kilowatts right now to charge your car. Yep, that's what the machine says. Do you know that an average home per hour uses about 1.25 what you're using right now? 1 kilowatt and a quarter? 1.25 kilowatts. You're sucking 135 as you sit here. Yeah, so? So said another way, your car charging here for this however long is the equivalent of 106 houses on average consuming energy total on the grid right now. How do you feel about that? Wouldn't you love to get the reaction? This charging session is like a little over 100 houses pulling energy from the energy grid at the same time. And if all of these in this row are being used at the same time, that's like 280 of them.
Well, that's why the grid needs to be renewable, Chris. It needs to be 100% renewable, right? That's why.
Listen, I am all for it, but if you think that the grid, if we're all driving these plug-in cars, now let's do the math here. You still like charging your phone, I assume. You still like using your appliances. You still like turning on your television. You still like watching Netflix. You still like your laptop to work and all the things at the office you turn on. I assume you still like your heat and air. I assume you still like to use a washer and dryer, microwave. I'll assume that you still enjoy all those things at the house, but you feel good because you're driving a green plug-in car. Yay for me, I'm green. Okay, great. If we're all driving those stupid plug-in cars and we're all still trying to run our homes at the same average consumption level of energy, do you think at present, given the fact that we know the power grid right now, as it stands right now, has to power down, go to blackout or brownout status, or rolling brownouts to accommodate certain regions of the country when the cold gets too cold or the hot gets too hot? If we don't have enough power right now to power our needs right now when the temperatures get extreme one way or the other, what does millions of cars that are drawing energy the equivalent of 106 homes per hour mean for us? What's the math on that? Even hundreds of thousands of cars. Right now, people still aren't buying these stupid things. They don't want them. But someday, the government, if they get their way, they're going to make us. Auto salespeople tell me they're being penalized regularly for selling gas-powered cars. It is to their advantage now to force these stupid plug-in things on you that nobody wants. Okay, so the government wins, and eventually we're all plugging in our cars and drawing unbelievable amounts of power from the grid. Can the grid at present keep up with all of us? Answer no. Not unless we have a massive supply of energy. Where does it come from right now? Where does the energy for the grid come from? Answer, not solar and wind. No, it is not. Not even close. It couldn't even begin to come close to giving us what we need to power us right now. Never mind thousands and thousands, maybe millions of plug-in cars on the open road. No, you're going to need coal, which is what over half of the country is still powered by right now. All of your appliances, when you turn them on in the morning, over half of this power grid is still powered by coal and will continue to be. Unless there's only one cleaner option than all of it, and you know what it is, and you know the left won't do this: nuclear. Nuclear is the greenest of all the green energy, but we can't do that. Nuclear would give us everything we needed forever. Nuclear could launch us to the moon, but that's another debate. So I say all that to say I just came across that last night, and I got a story in front of me today. You remember a couple of weeks ago, we invited some folks on the show who were successful in beating back, mostly it was the Jersey Shore residents, who were successful in beating back the wind turbines, the wind farm being built out in the ocean. Nobody up and down the coast of New Jersey wanted these things, and the company that was exploring these deep water plots of land where they were going to stick these big wind turbines, there's reasonable suspicion that they were killing marine mammals in doing so, all the dead whales and dolphins that were washing up. So after a sustained campaign of pushing back, this company that was going to stick all these wind turbines in the ocean off the Jersey Shore, they retreated for now. They've run away for now. Well, the Philadelphia Inquirer has written a piece. Well, I don't know what the hell they're belly aching about out there in New Jersey, because here in Pennsylvania, why we've had these turbines all along. Yeah, I know. I've been up, playing around a golf in the Poconos, beautiful course, and you look out over the vast beauty of the Pennsylvania wood and the Pennsylvania mountains and the hills and the hollers, and then you see these spinning monstrosities up in the Poconos. It makes me sick. I find them ugly. Jason Nark, who's a good guy, I'm not picking on him, but he writes this at the Inquirer, and he's writing about how they've been a mainstay of Pennsylvania culture for a while. And he said, some people find them beautiful while others find them eyesores. Count me in the eyesore category, Fast Eddie. I don't know about you. I don't look at those things and think beauty at all.
No, I think in California, that looks beautiful. In Pennsylvania, it doesn't look good at all.
Pennsylvania is one of the most beautiful states in the country, particularly when you get into the Poconos. You're hard-pressed, particularly this time of year, to find more beautiful country than the Poconos. And you're on a tee box that overlooks a huge valley of trees and rocky cliffs, and then you see this big white metallic thing spinning with a red blinking light on it. Makes me it's nauseated me for years to see it. Anyway, his point of the story is, I don't know what New Jersey's bitching about. Why, Pennsylvania's had these for a long while. Yeah, and they have out in the Midwest, too. Kansas is covered with them, for instance. And they're ugly out there, too. But you know what's funny? This story prints off 3 full pages talking about how Pennsylvania's been fine with wind farms. And it talks about all the people that own the land that the wind farms sit on. These companies come along to stick these big, ugly things in people's farmland, and the farmers, or the people that own the land, say, I don't know. And the wind farm company says, well, how about we pay you several $1,000s a year? You don't have to give over the land. Just let us plop this here. You work around the windmill, and we'll just pay you. This is actually no different than pumping petroleum out of the ground. You've seen those old pump wells, maybe, certain parts of the country, they pump on people's property and draw oil out of the ground. People get paid, Alaska, they're paid pretty handsomely. They all get a dividend check. Voters in Alaska, or all citizens of Alaska, get a dividend check every year for the oil they draw out of the ground from Alaska. So I'm all for, God bless capitalism. These wind farms come along and they tell these guys that own this acreage, can we put one of these big turbines on your land? And they say, well, what's in it for me? And they go, we'll give you several $1,000s a year. And so this whole story talks about these Pennsylvania landowners who have had these big, ugly monstrosities on their land. And several of the people in this story are quoted as saying, well, we get checks and it pays for our taxes. So, Fast Eddie, what is the one thing, and again, I actually really like Jason. Jason's a good guy and he's not a lunatic. But this whole piece, while the shore debates wind turbines, Pennsylvania's been spinning for 2 decades. What is the one thing that is completely absent from this story? Based on what I just shared with you, what's the one thing that we did not talk about during the entirety of this discussion that he'd written about the wind turbines in Pennsylvania?
What kind of production it provides for the grid itself?
What good are they? What good are they? What are they actually doing? You've told me that we've had them in Pennsylvania for decades. You've told me that people that have them stuck on their land are making money. You didn't say one word about the energy production or what it was powering or what it was saving consumers or not one word. That's a news outlet that decided it wasn't worth your time, or they couldn't find evidence to substantiate the story, or they didn't want to actually tell you what good they do. And again, it is not about being anti-wind or solar. It's about what is plentiful and readily available to power all our needs. And if you want to plug in your car to drive your electric car and feel good about that, you're gonna need power. And it ain't coming from windmills. Do you hear me? It will never come from windmills. And it will never come exclusively from solar. Maybe as a component, maybe as part of a larger energy portfolio, but these stupid windmills are not going to power millions of plug-in cars. This is a road to ruin for this country. Not that we're not already on it. But this is one of those things, much like public education, I would put them in almost that order. I struggle. It's neck and neck. If I had to pick two things that I believe are the doomsday scenario for this country, it's energy and education. If we do not take back control of our energy production and our education, Katie, bar the door. It's over. There's no point. If we don't teach Americans what makes this country great, and if we don't continue the free flow of oil and coal and what they call fossil fuels, which is cheap and plentiful and powers all our needs, or at least, at a minimum, develop nuclear. If we don't do that, we're driving ourselves back to the Stone Age. We may as well close it up and be Gaza right now. We see what they're doing in our streets. I mean, this energy proposal, this energy agenda of the left, they want to drive us back to the Palestinian era. They want us to look like Gaza. I'm not kidding.
Chris, what's one of the things that they are charging against Israel for, like anti-humanitarian Israel?
Yeah.
The first thing on the list when they say, well, they're not giving Gazans this, is fuel.
Yeah, fuel.
Fuel is the first thing listed in almost every news report.
And who's holding the bag on fuel globally right now? We know. Supposedly our biggest enemy. The ones that are supposedly stoking all of this violence. Iran. And Russia. Don't forget Russia. That's all Pooty-Poot has going for him. You know, so we care so deeply, and I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm not an editorial comment on the wars right now, all right? But if we care so deeply about Ukraine and Israel, then why in the world are we allowing, supposedly, its two greatest enemies, Russia and Iran, why are we allowing them to hold all the cards on the plentiful energy production that we could be providing ourselves and the rest of the globe? We could break these people financially without firing a shot if we wanted to. But no, we're talking about plugging in our cars and windmills. It's suicide. It's a national suicide pact, but you understand that. MyPillow.com. You know the jingle. There's MyPillow 2.0. It's out now, folks. I just slept on it again last night. You've been hearing for, 20 years, Mike has been making MyPillow. He's been making the commercials, and you wouldn't have thought you could improve upon a pillow, really. But the truth of it is, he's not only improved on the patented adjustable fill, but now he has a brand new fabric and a new temperature-regulating thread to keep you cool. If you sleep hot, and I kind of do, this is the softest, smoothest, coolest pillow, and I mean temperature cool, that you will ever own. And here's the deal. Mike is giving you a buy one, get one free offer with my name, Chris Podcast. When you use that as a promo code, Radio Listener Square, if you go to MyPillow.com and click on that Radio Listener Square, enter Chris Podcast, and you will get one free when you order a MyPillow 2.0. Chris Podcast, by the way, gets you up to 66% off everything on the site at MyPillow.com. Maybe it's the coffee. I am sipping My Coffee it's called, not My Pillow. It's My Coffee It's delicious. Enjoying it right now. Thank you, Mike. He's got light roast and dark roast versions there, so try his coffee. Listen, support a great patriot, support great American companies like MyPillow and the employees that work there up there in Minnesota. It's a fantastic customer service-oriented company at MyPillow. Every product that you buy from them is a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee if for some reason you don't like it, but they're really high-quality stuff. I mean, the slippers themselves, I sent slippers to a member of the staff. My wife has the MyPillow slippers. I sent pillows. I sent a couple of dog beds. Dean, my dog, is on a MyPillow dog bed, which he loves. Robes and bath towels, whole bath sheets, those great big absorbent bath sheets, if you like those. These Giza Dream Sheets we sleep on are like sleeping on a cloud. You will love these products. I just hope you go to MyPillow.com. Use my promo code, ChrisPodcast. Get that buy one, get one on the new MyPillow, or up to 66% off every product. MyPillow.com, promo code ChrisPodcast. Have you heard of her before, Fast Eddie? Have you heard of Ayaan Hirsi Ali?
Not past. She did a video for PragerU a few years back. That's where I saw her. I can't say I've been following her since.
She is listed as a Somali-born Dutch-American activist and former politician, critic of Islam, advocate for the rights and self-determination of Muslim women. She opposes things like forced marriage and honor killings and child marriage and female genital mutilation, all of these admirable things that you should be opposed to. She's been an outspoken critic of Islam. Heretofore, though, she has not spoken much about her own personal faith. And as I read this weekend, I realize that this is new for her. She has been exploring Christianity. And she wrote a piece at something called unheard.com. That's the website, unheard.com. Headline, and I would recommend this to everyone, Why I Am Now a Christian. Why I Am Now a Christian. And again, I cannot read it all to you because I just don't have the time. But in this, she talks about, one, coming from an Islamist background and what Islamists believe and why ultimately the intolerance of Islamists and the tolerance of Christians appeals to her so much more. She wrote things like, we were told in no uncertain terms that we could not be loyal to Allah and Muhammad while also maintaining friendships and loyalty toward unbelievers. If they explicitly rejected our summons to Islam, we were to hate and curse them. Here, a special hatred was reserved for one subset of unbeliever, the Jew. We cursed Jews multiple times a day and expressed horror, disgust, and anger at the litany of offenses they had allegedly committed. The Jew had betrayed our prophet. He had occupied the Holy Mosque in Jerusalem. He continued to spread corruption of the heart, mind, and soul. You can see why, to someone who had been through such a religious schooling, atheism seemed so appealing. That's the part of this that I left out. She then, after she broke free of this, she became an atheist. And she said a guy called Bertrand Russell offered a simple zero-cost escape from an unbearable life of self-denial and harassment of other people. For him, there was no credible case for the existence of God at all. Fear is the basis of the whole thing, he said. Fear of the mysterious, fear of defeat, fear of death. She said, as an atheist, I thought I would lose that fear. I also found an entirely new circle of friends. What changed? Why do I call myself a Christian now? Western civilization is under great threat from three different but related forces: the resurgence of great power, authoritarianism, and expansionism in the forms of the Chinese Communist Party and Vladimir Putin's Russia, the rise of global Islamism, which threatens to mobilize a vast population against the West, and the viral spread of woke ideology, which is eating into the moral fiber of the next generation. We endeavor to fend off these threats with modern secular tools, military, economic, diplomatic, technological efforts to defeat, bribe, persuade, or appease. And yet, with every round of conflict, we find ourselves losing ground. We're either running out of money with our national debt, or we're losing our lead in the technological race with China. But we can't fight off these formidable forces unless we can answer the question, what is it that unites us? The response that God is dead seems insufficient. The legacy consists, skipping ahead here. All sorts of apparently secular freedoms, the market, conscience, and of press, find their roots in Christianity. You hear that? Let me read that again, because that's important. All sorts of apparently secular freedoms, the market, conscience, freedom of the press, find their roots in Christianity. So I have come to realize that my atheist friends failed to see the wood for the trees. The wood is the civilization built on the Judeo-Christian tradition. It is the story of the West, warts and all. I ultimately found life without any spiritual solace unendurable. Indeed, very nearly self-destructive. Atheism failed to answer a simple question: what is the meaning and purpose of life? The line often attributed to G.K. Chesterton has turned into a prophecy. Listen to this. When men choose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They become capable of believing in anything. One more time. When men choose not to believe in God, they do not thereafter believe in nothing. They become capable of believing in anything. So she concludes by saying she no longer considers herself a Muslim apostate, but a lapsed atheist. She says, I have a great deal to learn about Christianity, but there's a better way to manage the challenges of existence than Islam or unbelief, and that's my Christian faith.
The Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.